So Impact Wrestling, we have a ton of Impact Wrestling news to get into today. Of course, we're still on the road to Slammiversary coming in July. Now that we know that fans are going to be back at Slammiversary in July, we're going to touch on that in this video. We're going to talk about potentially a big signing, maybe for Impact Wrestling, even though it was confirmed previously, then denied. We have maybe a bit more of an update about that. We have obviously, as you can see on the screen, TJP undergoing surgery, and we have some updates when it comes to the pricing of tickets, all that kind of stuff, Slammiversary. So there is a ton of stuff to get into in the world of Impact Wrestling today. Let's start off talking about TJP though, because Impact Wrestling and New Japan, people forget obviously about his commitments to New Japan, but Impact Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling star TJP has revealed that he recently underwent surgery to repair a broken nose. Now TJP noted on Instagram that he suffered the broken nose about a month or so ago and has been wrestling with it, quote, broken and kind of loose. He waited to get the surgery due to the Impact television taping schedule, and he likely will not miss any time as he waited until the last set of television tapings had ended. TJP indicated on social media that he went under the knife not this Thursday but the Thursday prior. Now, of course, TJP recently competed in an massively historic and just fantastic match on Thursday night as he and X Division champion Josh Alexander battled it out in the first ever 60-minute Iron Man match for the X Division championship. And obviously the match began on Before the Impact and then wrapped up in the opening moments of Impact Wrestling on Access TV. He faced, this past week as well, Kevin Knight on Friday's edition of New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong. This is what TJP had to say on Instagram about the surgery. He said, quote, "Hey guys, for those who have asked about my story post yesterday, was from surgery for a nose fracture that I've been performing with for a few weeks. I broke my nose about a month ago and had been wrestling with it broken and kind of loose. Had to finally get it set in place and a tube put inside the septum. Just need to wait until I had some time to do it because of my schedule was really heavy the last month or so. Thanks for all the well wishes. I hope that alleviates everyone's concerns. For those who applaud my face being broken, thanks for watching, and I hope you still enjoy the matches on Impact and New Japan Strong." So there you go. TJP undergoes surgery. Doesn't look like he's going to be missing any television time or any matches or anything like that. Look, TJP's... I know every time I talk about TJP, I say this, and I don't mean to be hung up on people's personal views, political views. This is pro wrestling at the end of the day. The two things shouldn't, I suppose, the two things shouldn't necessarily mix. I get that. Let's just focus on the wrestling because obviously, I don't agree with TJP's, political views or certainly the views that he's expressed on social media over the course of the last 18 months or so. And frankly, some of the things you do hear about him or some of the tweets you do hear about TJP are questionable at best. I remember, I think it was David Bixenspan posted a tweet about that TJP had said on social media, and I can't recall when it was from. I think it was from a couple of years ago or something like this. And he was responding to a tweet from a fellow pro wrestler where basically the tweet was, name a wrestler that went out of their way to help you, or just by being in the ring you learned so much from, or really helped you in your career. And TJP felt the need and desire, to tweet out that he had been wrestling for 22 years and nobody had helped him. Nobody had helped him learn anything. Nobody had taken him under his wing or their wing and taught him something, or just he had learned by osmosis, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people responded to that at the time of, why do you feel the need to say that? Why do you feel the need to tell everyone that everyone in the pro wrestling business is terrible? We know the pro wrestling business is full of questionable people maybe, and obviously you're an independent contractor, so you have to look out for yourself, and certainly some people do. But there are obviously some very good people in the industry, and if you haven't found one after 22 years, I think that probably says more about yourself as opposed to the wrestlers in the industry, right? Because after a while, it's only the coincidence becomes less and less of a coincidence. You're the primary factor in all of that, right? You're the constant in that situation, that scenario. Something worth considering. Either way, it doesn't look like TJP is going to miss any time because of the broken nose surgery. Obviously, the things with broken noses, you can compete with them for ages. It's up to you really when you get them fixed. Some people in the world of pro wrestling and sport in general, whether it's NFL, soccer over here in the United Kingdom or Europe or whatever, some people just have broken noses over and over again, and they have some horrible noses even though they've got them fixed. And sometimes you can go with them without them getting fixed for a while. So TJP has got his fix. He's not going to miss any television time or anything like that. Probably a good thing for him, frankly, because he's on a bit of a roll in Impact. I mentioned, regardless of his beliefs outside of the ring and whatever, he's obviously very, very talented and has been doing this a really long time. People kind of forget often about TJP because he competed under a mask for all of those years, whether it was Manic, whether it was in the early days of TNA and Impact Wrestling. I mean, going back to the early days of the X Division in sort of 2006, 2007, TJP was competing in Impact Wrestling and has competed around the world. Not just in Impact, WWE, New Japan, you name it. He's kind of been everywhere. He's kind of been on the indie scene for years and years and years at this point. He's very talented, very, very talented, and has some amazing matches. And this year has had a great year in Impact Wrestling. Obviously, X Division champion, brought back the Manic character in a different version, competed under the mask. Obviously, had the amazing match with Josh Alexander this past week on Before the Impact that then crossed over to Impact Wrestling. If you haven't seen it, if you're not a regular viewer of Impact Wrestling for whatever reason, maybe because you don't have the interest or just because it's difficult to find, obviously when it comes to Access TV, or it's difficult to find, say, over here in the United Kingdom or wherever you're watching this video from. I know we have quite a few viewers of the channel in India as well, if it's difficult for you to watch. Impact have posted the entirety of the 60-minute Iron Man match to their YouTube account and to, I think, their social media platforms too. So if you haven't already, I can't recommend enough going to watch it. The thing is, sometimes with Iron Man matches, and it's the big debate, isn't it, for the WrestleMania 12 Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, is a lot of people, again, it's kind of a controversial subject, but some people say that actually the match isn't that good, and because it was 60 minutes, parts of it were really slow and boring, and the ability that TJP and Josh Alexander had this week to tell that story across 60 minutes, but also the pace that they kept up. The pace that they kept up was just incredible. And like I said several times here on the channel now, that I could try and, because I've seen some people say, oh, are you going to do a review of it? Are you going to do an in-depth breakdown? My feeling is that my words and my descriptions and my review of it would never, ever be able to do that match justice, because it was just so good. It was so good. Me talking about it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I'd never be able to do the match justice because it was great. It was a real fantastic match. I thoroughly enjoyed it. One of the biggest compliments I could give it is that it was a 60-minute Iron Man match that felt like it was 20 minutes because it went so quickly. And also, in addition to that, watching Before Impact Wrestling this week turned Impact Wrestling essentially into a 3-hour broadcast. If you watch Monday Night Raw every single week like I do for the channel and all that kind of stuff, you know that watching wrestling for 3 hours can be really, really tough. Even on, like, say, pay-per-view days, when you watch a pay-per-view that's 3 hours or 4 hours long, it can drag, because pro wrestling, once you get past, for me, that 2-hour period, unless you're watching a really strong show, it can be long, and it can be a bit of a drag, and it can be a case of, man, when is this going to end? When is this going to stop? All of that kind of stuff. The biggest compliment I can give that Iron Man match this week is that it was 60 minutes and it felt like 20. It went past so quickly, and it was a pleasure to watch. It really was a pleasure to watch, and Impact Wrestling essentially was a 3-hour broadcast this week, and it didn't feel like that at all. The pacing of the show was great. The pacing of the match was great, and we've spoken about this a couple of times here on the channel now. This is part of an ongoing plan and an initiative by Impact Wrestling to really elevate the X Division, put it on a par with the World Championship in a similar vein to the ECW Television Championship that Rob Van Dam held for over 700 days in the late 1990s, early 2000s. That's the plan for the X Division, and you achieve that by having spectacular and historic matches like they had this past week on Impact Wrestling. So TJP's on a roll. He's just undergone surgery, but he will be back for the next set of TV tapings. So very exciting stuff. Let's move on and talk about Moose. Moose continues to be one of the ultimate social media trolls, because Moose tweeted out earlier today, actually, he tweeted out, quote, "Yesterday was special, ... thanks to all." Now, someone responded to him with a gif of someone signing a contract, and Moose responded to that with, quote, "But with who?" End quote. So Moose is teasing the whole contract situation at the moment. As I've mentioned before, I think when it comes to Moose and the contractual situation, it's out there at this point that he has signed with Impact Wrestling. I know that Moose denied that. Of course, if you're not familiar with the story, Moose's contract is set to expire this month. It was previously reported by the Wrestling Observer newsletter and F4W Online that Moose was expected to re-sign with Impact Wrestling, or he may have even already signed with Impact Wrestling, or he was very, very close to sign with Impact Wrestling. Either way, the expectation was that Moose would re-sign with Impact. He was going to stay with Impact. We don't know what the interest was like from the likes of WWE or AEW AEW or going back to Ring of Honor or any of these companies. We don't know if there was interest. I would be surprised if there wasn't. But the ongoing expectation from the Impact Wrestling executives and sources within the company was that Moose was going to re-sign. Once F4W Online and the Wrestling Observer reported this, Moose shot down those reports, basically saying that it was untrue. The headline that F4W Online said was that Moose signs a new contract with Impact Wrestling. Moose said that this was untrue, and then did a post, a follow-up tweet, rather, basically saying, just get all of your information, get all of your news from me. My theory at the time was that Moose was being economical with the truth, and that when he saw that report that said Moose had signed a new contract with Impact Wrestling, maybe he hadn't. But the expectation there was that he was going to stay. He had maybe given a verbal agreement that he was going to stay. Impact Wrestling was certainly featuring him into storylines with the impression that he was going to stay, and they had plans for him going forward. Now, the tweet today where he says, yesterday was special, thanks to all, this is a reference to the Andrade tweet. Now, of course, Andrade tweeted out a similar thing, or it was either him or Charlotte Flair tweeted out a similar thing a couple of days ago, and it led to all kinds of speculation as to, is Charlotte Flair pregnant? Have they set a wedding date? Because, of course, they are engaged to be married. In reality, we now know what the good news was, and the specialness was, it was about Andrade making his debut with AEW. I guess signing a deal with AEW. He made his debut last night on Friday Night Dynamite as Andrade El Idolo, regardless how JR pronounced it. During the show, it was that Andrade is now All Elite. So Moose is trying, I guess, to play on this. He's trying to imply that maybe he has also signed a new contract with AEW. He's been teasing that he could go to AEW over the course of the last 7 days or so. He teased that he could show up at Double or Nothing. He was saying that he was in Jacksonville. I think Sean Ross Sapp tweeted out who's in Jacksonville for Double or Nothing. He posted that he was in Jacksonville, all that kind of stuff. He's trying to work the internet. He's trying to work social media. He's trying to put an element of doubt in the minds of the fans that think, oh, he could still show up in AEW, he could still show up in WWE. In my opinion, and this is what my opinion's always been when it comes to Moose, since that report previously, prior to F4W and the Wrestling Observer newsletter reporting that the expectation was that he was going to stay, I did think he would go to WWE, or I did think he would go to AEW, because I felt that, not that he had outgrown Impact Wrestling, but I felt that the strides and the developments that this guy was making, I just felt it was inevitable that he would take the next step. Obviously, it's fantastic. It's excellent news. Excellent news that he is sticking around with Impact Wrestling, but the news got out. That was the problem. The news got out, and the storyline has been, or at least the story that Moose and I guess Impact wanted to tell, was that, oh, can Moose win this World Championship before his contract expires? They wanted to play a bit of doubt. They wanted to have an element of, well, you never know, Moose might not stay with Impact. He might go somewhere else and all that kind of stuff. Now the cat's out of the bag. So they're trying to essentially try and get the cat back into the bag, but we know that doesn't really work. So I think Moose is just trying. He's just trying to get an element of confusion, an element of, well, you never know what's going to happen. I still could sign with AEW. I still could sign with WWE. In reality, though, we know the expectation is that Moose is probably going to stay. This could just be a confirmation that Moose has actually now signed a contract with Impact Wrestling. Maybe previously he hadn't. Again, the expectation was that he was going to stay, but now maybe he has. So I think that's the latest when it comes to Moose. Again, the expectation is that he is going to stay, unless they do a deal where maybe he does show up in AEW to really work the internet. That might be a situation. Of course, they do have the working relationship with AEW, and of course, Moose is set to face Kenny Omega at Against All Odds. I think plans, as I mentioned, have changed, though. Again, I think the expectation was they were going to have Kenny Omega versus Moose at Against All Odds if Moose wasn't going to re-sign with the company, because they wanted to present that match. But now that it looks like Moose is staying, plans look to be a bit more fluid and changing. Obviously, you had the finish this past week between Moose and Sami Callihan. The Against All Odds match looks to be transformed into a triple threat match with Kenny Omega, Sami Callihan, and Moose for the Impact World Championship. I suspect what we're going to see at Against All Odds is Kenny Omega win the match by pinning Sami Callihan, which then allows a Moose versus Kenny Omega match to actually happen at Slammiversary. Possibly that's the place that Kenny Omega does drop the Impact World Championship to Moose. Again, I don't know if AEW are totally willing to do that, if Kenny Omega is still the AEW World Champion at the time, which I think he will be. But, you know, there's lots of different moving parts here. But for me, the expectation, as was reported previously, is that Moose is going to stay with Impact, and I expect that to be the case. So even though Moose is trying to work social media, I don't know realistically how much is actually working in that sense. Speaking of AEW and Impact Wrestling, we spoke about this briefly, but it's been officially confirmed and announced, and Impact have released some graphics about it, so we can talk about it again here. The official Impact and AEW Summit has been announced for next Thursday's Impact Wrestling episode on Access TV. Of course, that is the go-home show for Against All Odds, which is going to be on June 12th on Impact Plus. Before you even ask the question, of course, after the success of the Impact Under Siege watch-along and reaction, we will be doing an Against All Odds watch-along and reaction stream on Saturday next weekend. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Click the notification bell. You'll be notified when we go live for Saturday's Against All Odds watch-along and when we go live for the reaction stream afterwards. We're going to be doing a prediction video, I would assume the day before, so probably the Friday or maybe a little bit earlier than that. Probably Friday, because we would have seen the episode of Impact Wrestling on Access TV on Thursday, so I think Friday's probably the good day to do that. But if you subscribe and if you follow me on social media, I'll be very transparent about all that. But as I mentioned, we have the official Impact and AEW Summit announced for Thursday's episode of Impact Wrestling on Access TV. As we noted previously here on the channel, AEW President Tony Khan will be on Impact next week to talk about the possibility of adding Sami Callihan to the Impact World Championship match between Kenny Omega and challenger Moose at Against All Odds, making it a triple threat match. In an update, Impact are now calling this segment the Impact and AEW Summit with Khan, Don Callis, and Impact Wrestling Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore. Now, for me, I mentioned previously, and we've covered this ad nauseum here on the channel, that Don Callis is no longer an Executive Vice President with Impact Wrestling with Anthem Sports and Entertainment. This hasn't been confirmed by Impact or by Anthem yet. All that we know is that Don Callis' profile has been removed from the Anthem Sports and Entertainment website as an executive with the company. It hasn't been confirmed on Impact Wrestling Television as of yet. Now, the reason why I don't think Impact have confirmed it on TV or sent out a press release confirming that Don Callis is no longer an executive is because they want to play it out in storyline. As I mentioned before, they want to play out a situation whereby Scott D'Amore basically says to Don Callis, you can't be impartial anymore. You cannot be an executive. You cannot be a matchmaker. You can't be a booker whilst you're the manager of the Impact World Champion Kenny Omega. Your priorities and loyalties obviously lie with Kenny Omega, not with Impact Wrestling. Therefore, it's a conflict of interest. You are stripped of your responsibilities as an executive vice president. Furthermore, you are fired from Impact Wrestling. And then eventually he transitions over to AEW. In reality, he transitioned over to AEW a while ago. As I mentioned, he's no longer an executive with Impact or Anthem. He is signed with AEW. He is a talent. Tony Khan spoke about this at the AEW Double or Nothing post-show media scrum. He is a backstage consultant. He consults on a lot of the Kenny Omega segments and matches. I don't know how involved he gets in other stuff there, but obviously it's a collaborative effort at AEW with Tony Khan overseeing everything and being responsible for the final call. But if you've got someone like Don Callis, who is influential, does have a ton of experience, especially coming from Impact Wrestling in this executive role, it's good to have a voice like that. And he was there for ECW, and he was, after he retired from pro wrestling, very successful in the corporate world as well. So he's useful to have as a consultant. I don't know if his role in AEW will rise to more than that. We'll have to wait and see. But the reason I don't think Impact Wrestling have confirmed Callis' official Impact departure yet is, one, because he's still involved with Kenny Omega on screen, and as long as Omega's with Impact, so will Don Callis. But I think in reality, they want to play this out. It's a big deal. Whenever any executive leaves any company, it's a big news story. So they want to play that out. They want to blur the lines between fiction and reality, and that's what they're going to do with Don Callis. They're going to blur those lines, and eventually they're going to write Don Callis off of Impact Wrestling Television in the same vein as they write him out of his executive role with Impact Wrestling. So I could see that happening this week. We don't know whether that or not that will happen this week. Time will only tell, but it could happen this week. There's no doubt about that. There could be a situation where, I don't know, the fact that Tony Khan's going to be there is significant. Obviously, we haven't seen the paid ads anymore, which is a shame. I used to love breaking those down. They were a lot of fun to talk about. Tony Khan does his own promos now on social media, except they're about WWE's president, Nick Khan, instead. I would assume that Tony Khan is going to be there in person. He has been there in person a couple of times in the Impact Zone. He was there when Matt Hardy and Private Party did their appearance on Impact Wrestling. He was also there at Impact Rebellion, so I would assume he's probably going to be there as well for this summit. I know people don't like Tony Khan cutting promos. I know some people say, see, he is becoming a character. See, he's this mark. All he cares about is getting himself on TV. He's like Herb Abrams and all this kind of stuff. Look, Impact Wrestling fans, this is what's funny. When Tony Khan did the promo on social media a couple of weeks ago, all of the people you could tell that don't watch Impact Wrestling are watching this going, see what a mark, doing these promos and doing the whole double bicep stuff and all that kind of stuff. Watch this channel. You will know that I mentioned the double bicep stuff. You will know that I mentioned the promos. We've been covering them for months. Maybe I'm numb to them at this point, but I'm pretty much aware of it. So, fascinating. And look, it's a big segment for a big go-home episode of Impact Wrestling on Access TV, which is exciting. Finally, do want to talk about Slammiversary. Again, won't take too long on this because we covered it yesterday in yesterday's Slammiversary ticket video, so be sure to check that out. As I mentioned, Impact Wrestling Slammiversary has sold out. A little bit of an update, though. Impact Wrestling have announced that the initial tickets for Slammiversary sold out in just 20 minutes. Now, we don't know how many tickets there are. That's still the bit of point of contention. Given the small space of Skyway Studios in Nashville, I would assume that it can't be tons. There can't be loads. Even if it's, like I said, because of the small space, even if it is 20 or 40 or 60, I feel like 60 is a push. Given that space, obviously they can reconfigure things, so it's not out of the realm of possibility, but it'll be interesting to see how many they have. We know how expensive they were, and they were pretty pricey. Despite selling out in just 20 minutes, all Slammiversary tickets were priced at $250. Yes, and I suppose it does make sense considering pretty much all of them are floor seats and all of the stuff you get with them, but $250 is a pretty penny. Impact previously announced that there would be a limited number of tickets available, and because of that, all the tickets would be part of their new Super Premium VIP ticket plan. Each seat is an arena floor seat, which I guess is the reason why they're so pricey. Comes with the following perks: commemorative ticket with lanyard, official event TV shirt, official event mounted poster, a post-show commemorative photo at ringside or on the entrance ramp with the official X Division Championship bout, a swatch of the match-used Slammiversary ring canvas, plus the chance to see the canvas cut immediately after the pay-per-view ends, Impact branded swag, plus complimentary water, soft drinks, candy bars, and Robert Irvin's Fit Crunch protein bars, courtesy of Irvin and Impact Hall of Famer Gail Kim. So I guess, in reality, $250 is a lot of money, obviously, but you're getting floor-side seats, limited floor-side seats, being the first fans to actually attend an Impact Wrestling event in over a year since March of 2020, plus all of those perks. I guess that kind of adds up to roughly $250. I don't know. You can let me know what you think of that pricing. It is expensive, but I guess it's your commitment to Impact Wrestling. We'll have to wait and see. Just having fans, though, will add so much to that show, and I can't wait to see it. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of the Impact Wrestling news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, gut the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.